Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Culture Nerd Podcast. We are going to be nerding out today with the writer and artist for the Digital Lizards of Doom Volume 3, Dana Deathley volume. We'll be here today with writer Gabriel Valentin and artist Ceri Langell. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to talk about volumes 1 and 2, why you should be reading it if you're not, and how to jump on the Kickstarter for number 3. So strap in, everyone. Here we go.
We're jumping into a book today, so just like Steve from Blue's Clues, Blues can do, we can do,
Yeah, you watched that more than I did as a kid. I was like, nah, man.
Yeah. I had younger sisters, so Blues Clues played a lot in the household, so yeah.
I think my youngest brother liked it. Michael and I, we grew up in the Barney age of kid shows. Then that kind of like stopped. I don't know.
There's still puppets. They're in different ways. We've had a wonderful chance to speak with these two, so we need to start the show proper. But as this question is in my mind now, have you decided to make puppets for these characters yet? Are there felt versions of these characters alive in the world yet?
Oh my God, Michael, do you not know?
What do you mean?
There's puppets.
Where are there already puppets? Because the whole time I was reading this, I was like, man, these would be some bomb-ass puppets. Because of the way that the text happens, I was like, you could have puppets. You could do this as... I got a lot of Super Nintendo vibes as well, especially with the text boxes. Very like Star Fox. Yeah. Thank you for saying it at the same time as me.
I was thinking a lot of like those JRPGs where you have like the text box and the anime character just moving their mouth, but like the background is like the Persona games or Star Ocean or any of those games that did that. That's what I went to when I was reading it.
Final Fantasy Tactics Advance was the first Final Fantasy game that I bought myself. By the way, Final Fantasy is a huge inspiration as well. And like I remember like there was like these faces and they were like, and then like I just remember, they kind of had whatever they were saying mimicked their facial expression, and I remember I don't know, and I don't know how old I was, like 9, 10. I just remember being like, yeah, this is gonna play a role in my life somehow. And here,
this is a core memory. That's what this is.
Like, I'm remembering this.
Those art styles, even as a kid, you don't know that you're choosing a palette yet. But sometimes those things, they just grab you. They hook, line, and sinker. Carrie, what are the video games that grabbed you? What are the things that like stick out in your mind that you're like, oh boy, I want to draw like that someday?
So specifically, we got a PlayStation 1 for Christmas when I was a kid. And my favorite game ever of all time was the Spyro games, pretty much like reignited. And I remember my mom used to come up to me and we had to do this project for school where we had to write about our hero. And she didn't proofread my work, and I brought it to class and I wrote about Spyro the Dragon, and my teacher was extremely confused, but he was my biggest inspiration. I love the artwork of it, and even the reignited trilogy they did, I'm blown away.
Oh, so good. My son played the crap out of those games because my little squirrel on this one was I bought one of those PSP Go's, like the all digital one that kind of like flipped up like a phone. And when my son was like 3 or 4 at the time, I loaded all my old PS1 games like Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, all that stuff. I threw them all in there, and I was like, all right, when we're driving, just play this so you can like not scream in the car. And he got like, he was like, I beat all the Crash Bandicoots. I'm like, I haven't beat them all. How did you do that? But no, Spyro was like his favorite thing. So when the Reignited trilogy came out, he saw it, and he was like 10 or 11 at the time. And he's like, Dad, it's here now. And I'm like, it is. Should we buy it?
Now, did your love of Spyro get you into any of the Highlander figures? What was Spyro's franchise called? Yeah, Skylanders.
Yeah, so I do have every single Skylanders figure. Every single one.
Now,
I was a huge fan.
Every Spyro figure or every Skylander figure?
Every Skylanders figure.
Okay, so where are they? Are they in the other room? Is it on the other side of the camera? Where do you keep them? Are they in boxes unopened? Where do you keep them?
They are currently in a box in my closet. And it's labeled something totally different on the outside. But I absolutely loved those games so much.
So robbers won't know where they are. You wrote baby clothes on the outside. So if they see it, they go, I don't want this.
Yeah, that game was awesome. Yeah, we got carried away.
Did you have to open all of them, or can you just put the box on the reader?
You probably could, but we opened every single one of them. The only one we didn't open was there's a race car one that was like special, and we thought it might be worth something, but I've been tempted to even open it now.
Last question. Did this addiction start right when everything came out so you were able to keep up, or a couple years in you had to start going on eBay to hunt down the figures that you couldn't get at your local Toys R Us?
Oh, I was right in the fire while it was going on.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Great. Okay, good.
That's the best way to do it, I think. To be like, I don't know. I do that a lot of the times too. And now I've kind of had some issues with certain, like I had bought, Michael bring this up. I tracked down all of the Batman and Superman covers for back when the movie first came out. And then a few months back, I was like, I'm missing like 10 covers. So I went through and went like magic of eBay, and I found not even 10, I think there was like 10 total. I think I was missing like 4 covers. And then in the process of doing that, I ended up buying a cover that I already had. So now I have 2 of the same one. So I'm like, all right, well, eBay fail on my part because I don't pay attention to what I own.
You have officially ascended into cult fandom at that point when you have 2 collectible covers.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking about later on this little makeup desk that my wife put in the office because it couldn't fit in our room. I think I'm going to turn that into a Zack Snyder shrine and get some candles and like I'm going to have all the comics lining it up and like kind of make like the like a Day of the Dead La Frenda and just do it with Zack Snyder. But he's not dead. He's obviously just like But it's going to happen eventually. I'm going to like tip off the deep end and go full cult status.
I have mine. I have my producer shirt. My Justice League producer shirt, and then I have all of his movies. And
I have so many of those shirts. It's not even funny.
I just need to find some Zack Snyder candles, like Mother Mary candles.
Oh, they're out there. They have to be out there because I was in this one toy store. It was like this like I don't know. It's like one of those like retro kind of toy stores where you buy like all those knick-knack kind of toys, all the collector like high-end tin signs and lunchboxes, all that stuff. And I found this section that was just all of those kind of candles. And I found one of Keanu Reeves, and I was like, Steph, I told my wife, I'm like, should we just buy a bunch of these? And she's like, no. Apparently, I offended her because she's Hispanic and like Catholic. So like, I was like, I gotta get all these candles. She's like, you're not taking my life seriously. I was like, okay, I'm sorry. But here's one of Arnold Schwarzenegger dressed as Conan. Can I not get this one?
Oh, Conan. Beautiful.
Conan is the series you bring like comic book people that aren't comic book people, like comic books aren't art. I don't even know what you're talking about. You're like, yo, let me just show you this Conan shit. Because the Conan stuff feels so much of that art has moved into other mediums now that like it's like, oh, you mean this Game of Thrones comic book that you just showed me that looks all like real people? Yeah, see, yeah. Like that stuff right there, you look at that stuff and you're like, there's a world in that picture.
Yeah. I love Robert E. Howard. I got way into Conan right before I started writing Dlod, actually. I've always been a fan of Samurai Jack and Akira. And like all of these epic mythological adventure stories and that format of like short story kind of stuff. And so a friend of mine was like, oh, you should read Conan. And I was like, oh, I know all about Conan. I've seen the movies. I've read the comics. He's like, no, you got to read the original, like Robert E. Howard's Conan. And then I'm like, okay. So I started reading it and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, it is crazy town how much like there's Star Wars stuff in there. There's a ton of Samurai Jack. I didn't realize how much Samurai Jack pulled from Conan. Like there's there's short stories that are like literally just Samurai Jack episodes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. Like, yeah, so I love that like short story, epic fantasy stuff. And yeah, it's very chewable, like you're saying. It's like it's a good thing to show somebody if they're just like, I'm not really into that stuff. It's like, no, like I think you are if you like cool shit.
I have not read the Conan books, but I'm excited to now like put that down. I'm like, oh, I should like read these books. That being said, I did get bit real hard by the Dune bug and read all of the dad's Dune books. And much like you being like, oh, this is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Does George Lucas, do they know that George Lucas stole all this shit from this guy? Like that kept happening to me a bunch of times while reading those books.
Well, no, I mean, so I was watching, my dad loves Dune. Dune was like his go-to. And even as a kid, he was like, you need to read this book. And I'm like, all right, I'll read this book with you, Dad. And so last night we were at my sister's birthday party. And after they were all getting ready to go out and do their clubbing thing, my dad's like, all right, I'm bored. I'm like, well, let's watch Book of Boba Fett. You haven't watched it yet. And I think I watched first 4 episodes with him. And he's like, after we're done watching, he's like, is Tatooine Arrakis? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And he's like, oh, that makes so much sense now. He's like, as soon as they tipped over the spice train, I was like, what's happening here? I'm like, yeah, George Lucas said flat out Dune inspired him for Star Wars. Like that was a huge, huge thing.
Yeah.
So Dune is wonderful.
Carrie, what is your book series that's just like Star Wars, but you didn't know that until you read it?
A book series? Oh, does the original Mobile Suit Gundam manga count?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the closest thing I read to Star Wars, even people character-wise.
I wonder if there was something in the water because there's no way that those two gentlemen knew what was going on, but like channeled so many of those ideas and stuff like that. Because, right, Star Wars is a bunch of dudes and right, all the bad guys are like real nice suits and stuff like that. And Gundam has a lot of people in suits and different suits and fancy suits and suits with frill. There's a lot of suits.
I feel like even in like if you look at a whole bunch of different Gundams back and forth to the timeline of Star Wars and Gundam, they just keep stealing things from each other, like going back and forth. It's really interesting.
So Michael and I did a show. One of our first trial run shows was about Gundam 100% because I love the Gundam franchise. And before we started the show, I was telling Michael that I'm like, well, now I have 4 Gundam models that have not been opened or prepped. So I'm collecting them now. Like I've got my my Gundam Factory 1/100 Mark 78. Then
They're
I bought
so pretty. The boxes, even if I don't do anything, I just want to look at the boxes.
All of the box covers in this desk right here. I keep all of them.
Yeah. And then I got the G-Dock version, which is the one where you build them and he has the dock. So it's like,
oh, that one's cool.
I was like, dope.
Great.
I bought the Gundam Death Scythe, the one from the manga. So he's got the white helmet, and he's like super different looking. And then the one I bought yesterday at Target, which I was
a fully publisher note. Make those white helmets. It's way easier when we have to print them. We don't have to ink and all that stuff. It's a lot less.
I was at Target. And I'm like, I gotta buy that shit, and I bought the Real Grade X just because I'm like, this is a cool one. So
do you have a favorite mobile suit? I know that's a big question to ask.
It's so difficult because it changes year to year, and there are so many of these and. You can speak to this because you're bringing different artists for all of your different comic books. There's sort of this interpretation of the Gundam over time. I know it sounds, I hate to say it, but like that Endless Waltz Gundam Zero with the wings, it's so just everything. It's a hero, it's this thing, it's the counter to the evil. I really like
so
that
Michael,
stuff.
I'm going to break your brain a little bit. So when Endless Waltz came out, they didn't explain anything, right?
Right.
And then what they ended up doing, I just ripped my earpiece out. They ended up releasing a manga, like 10 years later. They're like, by the way, let's give some backstory to all those weird ass designs. And they released it, Gundam Wing, like Endless Waltz, Glory of the Losers. And in this story, it basically retells all of Gundam Wing, but like with the new designs, and they go like full on heavy into some of the changes that they make. The wings actually came from the Tallgeese. Like the Tallgeese had the wings. After Hero like messes him up and his Wing Zero gets messed up, he basically takes all the pieces from the Tallgeese and makes his new Gundam Zero with the wings. And I'm like, Oh my god, I love the backstory. I want that.
Even better when you find out that they're Frankensteining these things together.
Yeah, I mean, the Toggies with the wings was pretty rad. And let me see if I can. Is it in the volume that I have, or am I got
the Gundam Wing? The Gundam Wing Gundams always stick out in my mind, but from the original show, I always liked Gun Cannon. It always felt like a Mega Man boss or something. Like there was just something about that, like I really dug. And
Cutman and Gun Cannon on round 2. Like
yeah, and then also any of Char's Gundams. They're always red. They're always a little bit different. They always feel customized. Every time I see whatever new thing he's gonna blow up humanity with, I'm always like, "Oh, that's delicious." What Gundams stick in your mind?
The Barbados Lupus Rex is my absolute favorite. But
right, I was actually going to say, like, when I was looking around all my Gundams, the Barbatos was probably one of my top ones, just because of how weird his like mid section is. I'm like, it's not practical, but it's fucking dope. I see it every time.
And then I have a soft spot for the Zaku too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Is the Barbatos the one from Blood Orphans?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one right here.
It's like we were talking earlier of our love for the imagery from 300, and both of which are imageries there. The Barbatos's imagery, it's like a Greek god, and it kind of gets built up a little bit more, and you get to see it in its regalia, but then eventually it gets stripped down again, and it's still like this elemental being. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm either going to kill you with these things, or this guy's going to come and get you. There's just so many things going on.
All right.
And that's a very new Gundam design. That's very new to the canon of Gundam, and it feels like it should have always been there.
Yep.
Just so that people understand what we're talking about, let me pull up a picture of Barbatos Lupus Rex, just because I know that this is the way we're going with this. I need to have visuals.
Just as a point of reference, so people can see what it is. And what's funny is the Barbatos also has Tallgeese vibes and kind of that sort of.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, like look at that. Look at that guy.
I loved that tail, and it was just like, I'm like, okay, that thing is that's excessive. I was like,
I haven't seen all of Gundam. I've seen as much Gundam as I can. I pick up on it when I can. That first time was the first time I was like, oh, Gundam is bringing in those Evangelion elements. Mm-hmm. There's some magic in the sauce here of these robots that we don't completely understand, but it's there. And I was very down for that. I was like, yep, let's have that be in the thing.
Where does a Stargazer Gundam fit into all that stuff?
Oh, a Gundam Stargazer.
That's the one I'm like most familiar with.
That's not the.
Oh, that was Gundam Seed, wasn't it? Is that the one with the big ring around his back?
Yeah, has a big ring around his back.
Yes, I don't know. I have such a love-hate relationship with Gundam Seed, because Gundam Seed was the first Gundam anime that they were like, let's just go full anime trope with this, and it got weird. It was like the whole cast are like 14-year-old kids. You just magically know how to use it. It's like, I was like, all right, this is weird. But it had some great designs.
Children have nothing in their heads yet. They haven't learned anything. Your baby beat Crash Bandicoot, no problem. I get like a 13-year-old being like, I am the master of this robot now.
I don't need to know this arcade in a way that makes sense. I need to acknowledge my frustration with that show.
Okay.
Taylor, it had some beautiful designs, and it was probably one of the first shows that they actually made the beam saber make scientific sense, where the beam saber actually had an enclosure on each side, so it was kind of like the blade lit inside of it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That's how you would actually make a laser sword. All right, well, good for you guys. I'm so mad at your character designs, but I love the suits.
There's some I don't know how hard Ryan Reynolds can try to get himself into Star Wars. He's done like 3 movies now where lightsabers show up. Like multiple movies now, lightsabers keep showing up. I don't know how the next lightsaber shows up, but he really wants a lightsaber.
I want him to have a lightsaber too. All right, well, we segued a lot into different things. Let's talk about the comic.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it.
Dlod.
I first got it. I'm gonna probably rip the earpiece out of my earpiece. I first got it actually was the one that you sent me, Gabe. And I love it. And I even got the little sticker that slapped in there, and I use that as a bookmark because I don't want to use it.
Because I love you.
And even like put your name in there. It was really nice. I love this to death. It was so weird. It was so cool. I loved how when the first one ended, I remember first reading it and I'm like, no, that can't be the way they stop. Like, I need to know now. What's happening? That's like, it was the most unfair cliffhanger that I had in a book in a long time.
That makes me so happy, dude. What's really cool too, not humble brag because I'm bragging about Lesser Known Comics, but like, what's it called when you brag about your publisher? It doesn't matter. Anyways,
Lesser
Known Comics is awesome, and the books are going to be coming out a lot faster. So, like book 3, without getting into too much weird stuff that happened with the last publisher, Lesser Known Comics isn't messing around. So we have like a pretty tight schedule, and they're also helping me with a lot of things. So like book 3, we don't have a hard fast date for like store release, but anyone who backs the Kickstarter for level 3, you're probably gonna get it in May or June.
Yeah, that's a lot faster.
May at the earliest, but definitely June. So, and then book 4 comes out at the end of this year. But we don't announce the next artist until like the whole book is like done its thing, kind of thing. But then book 5, 6, and 7 are looking like they're all in production right now. So 5, 6, and 7 are probably coming out next year, all 3 in the same year.
Wow.
So that was going to actually segue to my next question: is how many books total do you have planned? Are you going to do like the thing with Lost, where you're like, we have 6 seasons and we're done? Or are you going to be like One Piece and like we're 1,000 episodes in and we're never going to finish? Like,
no, there is. So here's something that is kind of spooky, at least to me. I don't know if it's that cool to anybody else, but the ending of the final book is book 8.
Okay.
And right now it's called Final Boss. And it's the second book I wrote. So so book 2 is technically book 1. I wrote book 2 first. Then I was trying to pitch it to somebody, a couple different publishers, and I got some producers involved to help like flesh out the story a little bit more. And they were like, you can't release this, or you could, but think about book 2. Book 2 really hasn't changed that much. But they were like, it makes no sense. Like it doesn't make any sense. You need an introduction. You need like a pilot 1, and
you don't need it. But I understand why they said that. But you also did a George Lucas thing. Star Wars doesn't explain to you spaceships. It doesn't say, oh, well, these people met. No, you go right into the adventure and you start with some. Right.
Yeah, but I was like, these guys. So that's where book 1. So because book, like I said, it was book 1 come out. So it was like perfect. I can just make already like nothing changed at all. It was just I had where all stuff came from. That's why against book 1. I love book 1. Like the other stuff. Book 1 is, I would say, pilot 1 of a TV show. It's very much like catch up, world build, like going on. This is what's going on, and then like right after that, it's like, all right, like here's what we can have. Like here's the world. You guys know the characters now. Like let's dive in, and so. But so yeah, I mean, I love it. Was an amazing experience reading that, but it was like definitely a episode 0 almost of the series, and then book 8 is what we wrote right after book 2, and so the ending for book 8 has been written, and book 8 was finished in 2018. I think. Yeah. The Final page, and it has not changed. The final page for book 8 has the dialogue that they say has not changed at all. The conversation with the characters that are still there, like, is the same. It's always been. So it's kind of spooky. What's going on over here?
Nothing. We're having some connection issues with you, and we're secretly typing it, but you can see all of our typing, so it's not very secret.
Yeah, no. So when you were explaining it, you were dipping in and out of the audio a little bit. I'm like, is my computer broken?
No.
What's happening?
Oh no.
So now it kind of sounds like you were talking about spoilers and we were censoring it all. So it kind of works out.
It's very cryptic. And the fans will have to really deep dive through this one. That's so funny that you said that. I was watching videos about Buster Keaton making comedy movies, and they would come out with a really strong idea and know what the ending was, but just say, oh, the middle will figure itself out. And it's interesting that that idea is being brought here as well. Carrie, how much license do you have? Obviously, here's the text, and I have an interpretation. To know a little bit about inside the cookbook, are you given depictions of those full page spreads, or is that up to your discretion?
I am. Gabriel gives me these beautiful drawings to go by. These gorgeous little sketches of what to do on the pages. So he definitely directs how each page is going to look, and then I work from those.
As the art from the first page just popped up from the first book, there's such a D&D feel to it. Like the pictures, like you're almost looking at these classes, and there's so much, the skeletons and stuff like that. Volume 2 had a very 90s vibe. And I don't know if that's some of that's the writing, some of that is definitely the way that the pineapples are in there, because everything was extreme in the 90s. Have you thought about making Pogs? Because these guys would look so good on Pogs, and then you can have electronic killing organism as the slammer. I just wanted to know if you've thought about Pogs at all.
I haven't ever until just now, but I think that's an amazing idea. And Carrie would make some badass Pogs.
I love Pogs.
I like I also like pins. I'm a big pin guy. So if you're making Pogs, let's throw some of these things on some metal guys and let's start making some pins.
That'd be so cool.
When Michael finished volume 1 and 2, he was like, I'm about to read these right now. And I'm like, all right, cool. And like 2 hours later, he's like, I need them as Pogs. And that was the text. I'm like, yeah,
the world feels so fleshed out, and I want artifacts, I want trinkets, I want things from it to interact with, because there's such that vibe that's in there. Carrie, with your art, what kind of vibe are we getting with volume 3?
I would say I don't know. I've always been described, my style's kind of always been described as a cross between anime and American comics, lost somewhere in that space.
Yeah.
So that's what I would think.
I love that you're getting to bring that style, because I like that the characters are so open to interpretation. As we see our Dizzy Doom over there, I like that. The first go around, he's very lizardy, but in volume 2, he kind of feels like a gray alien, the way that he's almost like not a lizard anymore. And volume 3, I'm getting some wonderful Ninja Turtle vibes on that head. Absolutely, bro. Absolutely there. That's a pizza party if I've ever seen it. So I like to see the way that they all come in, because I don't know, in my kid brain, it lets me play with them in different ways.
Definitely Saturday morning cartoon vibes too, every time I drew them. Wake up and eat breakfast and get started. It was perfect.
Yeah. So one thing that I wanted to know, Gabe, was there's pineapples on every single page. What started the love affair with pineapples? There's a reference, at least. Not even in the pictures, but every page you got Pineapple Pete, introduction.
That's his Trigun cat. In Trigun, there's a cat on every page. There's a pineapple on every page.
And then in every text dialogue, he's like, and then Dizzy takes a bite of the pineapple, mid-sentence. I'm like, okay, cool. Okay. He loves pineapples. I get this. Is it the secret of, is it what's giving him power, or like does he just love them? Like I want deeper meaning to the pineapples.
So how's my connection, by the way?
That's much better. You look beautiful. Beautiful.
We're not censoring any spoilers now. Get into it.
So in book 1, if you notice, there's, depending on what type of situation, depends on how big of a bite he's taking from the pineapple. So sometimes it's a small bite. Sometimes if he's like not that stressed out, sometimes it's a big bite if he's really stressed out. And so it's more of like a nervous tick or an excited thing. And after book 1, he's not on Kraglodon anymore because he's sailing off with Dana Deathleaf, Fat Cat Rogers, and Shaky Spears, and they don't have the access to pineapples like they did. There's a reference about that in every book until Dizzy gets to have pineapples again. But yeah, it's something that will play a bigger part in the story later. But so it is. I do hope people are noticing that because that's really cool. But Pineapple Pete is also he's a pineapple demon from the planet Pineapolis.
Right, like the fact that is an agreed upon thing. Like whatever this pineapple is, it's either there's definitely a power there, but there's also sort of an addiction there. So it's not going to be good. The milk is a lie, Taylor. Like, I don't understand what you don't get about it. The pineapple's not going to be good.
It's a lot of secret. There's a lot of clues. Like, and poor Carrie, because she's been such a good sport. I'm like, hey,
draw the clues. Don't question it. Draw the clues.
Like, we have to. Fat Cat Rogers Sash is, it's weird to say, but like it's a very important part of the storyline. And in book 2, we unfortunately had to play catch up. We were 5 months behind schedule, and we had 3 artists drop out from book 2. And it was just disastrous. And we're also switching publishers. So for book 2, I had Armand Bodner and Nick Nunez, who did the artwork for book 2. They came in. Those guys were heroes. They totally saved the day. And so there was like one scene where Fat Cat Rogers didn't have his sash, or there's only one scene where he does have his sash showing, and I wanted his sash to be showing in every single panel he was in, but to save time, we did it in a way where it was like I mean, it was those guys. I think they were doing like 6 pages a day, and they just didn't sleep. And it was like we were just like I would draw out the 6-page storyboards, send them over, they'd send them back, yes, color, and it was just like none of us slept for like 4 months, and then we got it done. And it's a big book. And so there's like in book 2 is the only one where it doesn't really show Pineapple or Fat Cat Rogers Sash. And like they're looking at me like, why is it such a big deal? We don't need to draw the sash. And I'm like, well, you will see in book 4 why that's kind of, I told them why. But like there's a very huge reason why, because when people read book 4, they're gonna go back to Carrie's book. They're going to go back to book 1, and they're going to like be like, was he wearing this sash the whole time? Because it's a direct tie-in, like it changes the story. So yeah, there's all kinds of clues and stuff that are sprinkled throughout, and there's little hints to how the book's going to end. There's little things the characters say that I think once people finish the whole series, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, he said this thing and this thing. So yeah, I'm really excited about that.
We talked about much earlier, before this was even being recorded. We were talking about One Piece, and it was funny as I was watching One Piece, there was a One Piece feels like the evolution of Popeye. Like Popeye set up this world, and then One Piece took that world like, oh, okay, well, there's the spinach fruit, but then there's also this other stuff. Yeah. So I also got sort of those vibes, especially in the art of the ship and also of Fat Cat Rogers in those sort of depictions. I was like, oh, you have some crazy power. I don't know what it is yet, but there's more than meets the eye. Will we get more? Do we get more crew members? Do we get other people that will join us? Not necessarily over all the books, but will we get other people to populate our ship?
The ship, not until book 7.
Ooh.
But the 4 characters, the 4 crew members are like the main crew members that carry out the story and of the Scowling Scarab. Like that's like the main crew. But how can I say this? I guess this isn't really a spoiler, but so the ship is alive.
I mean, it's not a spoiler, but like that's a huge thing to know. Yeah, great. Yeah, that's the 5th. That's the 5th crew member then.
That is technically the 5th crew member in this sense. But
it's like the revelation that the Millennium Falcon is actually an AI. You're like, oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So there's some stuff that goes on with that, but so the characters, how the formula is going to go is there is like, oh man, okay, so there's
I don't think you should tell us this. I don't think I know what you want to do. I think you're getting I think you
plug your ears, Michael. Plug your ears. Plug your ears.
There's the 4 characters. They need to stay being 4. That's all I'm gonna say.
Great.
They need to be 4.
Great.
Yeah.
It's like Final Fantasy VII. Like you're gonna have your core team until the very end when we're going to Vincent Valentine, and then he's going to be a part of the story, but fans are going to love him, but you're going to get mad that he wasn't there the whole time.
Yeah.
So, Carrie, as you get brought into this marriage of this back and forth with the ideas and stuff like that, it is your job. You draw everybody. Was there any of the characters that you just were easy to draw, or you were always like, oh, I love drawing this person?
Okay, so if I had to choose like a favorite, it's definitely Dana. She is obviously pink and super badass and awesome. But like drawing wise, physically, I think the most fun one to draw is actually Wardy Morta. She has all these like cool angles and curves on her, and she has this really intricate nose that I like drawing. And she's always kind of hilariously evil. So there's always like a fun, like, ooh. I always make that face. You know, you make faces when you draw them. So I'm always making like Wardy Morta's face while I'm drawing her, which is fun.
Do you do it like a Disney animator from the 40s? Do you have a mirror at your desk and you do this face and then you draw that face and you do this face and you draw this face?
I don't think I want to make the faces, especially in public while I'm drawing it. Just like
sure.
Even like Commander EKO's face is hilarious because he's just kind of got like these little glowing dots and then this like line for her mouth. So I'll end up making like the mailbox face when I draw him. But
you're going back and forth with Commander EKO. I have a question for you. Does he talk like a baby robot? Not his words. I know what he says because I read what your words are. But sometimes in my mind, I pictured him sounding like a baby robot. Does he sound like a baby robot?
Who are you asking?
About Commander EKO.
No. Are you asking Carrie or me?
Because have different great follow-up. Carrie, what do you think he sounds like?
That's so interesting. I did have like voices in my head for each of them. Commander EKO, I imagined kind of like a strong but goofy voice. Like a confident, but I can't think of anyone to compare to. Like
it's almost not like strong bad. Yeah, okay. Like a Zerg? Like a Zerg from yeah, okay.
Just like a little less robot-y, a little more like, but yeah, along the same lines of that.
Are Zergs? That's from StarCraft, right?
He's from Toy Story.
Buzz Lightyear.
Right? Oh, yeah. Buzz Lightyear. Okay, what's the StarCraft creature that kind of has like the hood?
Protoss?
Is it Protoss?
Protoss are like the
super advanced ones.
Yeah, and it has like this echoey, crazy voice. Yeah, that's how I picture. It's been a long time since I played
that. Yeah,
but that's how I picture Echo. But okay, so we're gonna assume that people have read book 2.
Great. Right. So if you haven't read book 2, you got to skip ahead to some point. But if you have read book 2, keep listening.
So here,
throwing it on. Spoiler alert, everyone.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Didn't get the memo. There it is.
So Commander Echo is Klugus now.
Right.
So, like in my mind, so we have an audio, kind of like a radio play version of book 1 coming out, and so in my mind, I'm gonna have it's gonna be very slight because we have a lot of effects on the actor's voice, but in my mind, I would like to have Commander Echo, if possible. It's probably going to be really expensive to do this, but Commander Echo be played by a male actor on the first book, and then from book 2 and on, bring in a female actor to then also put her voice on top of the male voice. So it's like you're hearing Klugus and Echo talking the whole time.
Yeah, like whenever Goku and Vegeta fuse, you get the double voices. Yeah, totally.
So and then someone asked me, because I was talking about this with somebody, and I'm like, well, how come if Commander Echo has assimilated all these other people, how come he doesn't have their voices? And I'm like, well, it's very simple, because he's just assimilated them and like absorbed their knowledge. They're not like Klugus is literally in the suit. And that's kind of like a messed up image if you think about it, but it's a kid's book, so we're not going to show that. But it's like Klugus is like basically dead body is in that suit, because Commander Echo is just it's just an entity. He's just like an orb. So he just needs a host to exist to do all these things, and then obviously the suit and stuff, his armor. But so yeah, like inside that suit is Dizzy's best friend, which he doesn't know yet, and we'll discover some of that in book 3. Yeah, it's like it. So in my opinion, it's like a male voice up until like a computery male voice up until book 2, and then I picture like Klugus's voice just kind of back and forth, in between. Just this weird hybrid. I think it'd be kind of spooky, kind of like him from Powerpuff Girls. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if we get any Shinji Ikari episodes where we're just inside the robot talking to the orb back and forth about choices.
You know it.
Oh, okay, great. Now listen, congratulations.
Not that reference. Not yet. We're not ready for that.
Okay. Well, I mean, we're working there.
So one of the things that when I was reading the books, volume 1 and 2, I kept getting vibes from certain characters that obviously you probably pulled inspiration from. Who are their characters typically based on? Because I 100% feel like Dizzy is like an amalgamation of like Michelangelo from Ninja Turtles and a few other characters. Every time I read Dana Deathly, I kept thinking like comic book Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice.
And then, I mean, obviously with the whole dynamic between her and her mom and like the Gamora and Thanos thing, like that was kind of how I was like, okay, I like this. I dig this. I can gel with this. And then Shaky Spears like reminded me like a mixture of Groot and like Etrigan the Demon from DC, just like with the poems and all that stuff. Like,
yeah.
Who were your inspirations? Who did you pull from for these characters?
So hopefully this isn't a cop out, but like it's less. Not saying that I haven't pulled inspiration from characters that already exist, but it's more of I've pulled inspiration from genres. So so Dizzy Doom is that like American indie, actually not even American, just indie comics in general. That's why for book 1, I really wanted like as close to like this French abstract for his book, like this almost like a Mobius kind of vibe.
Very MTV liquid cool. It reminds me a lot of not one-to-one, but like that Aeon Flux kind of, some of the angles on some of these things. You can feel that within the ether of it.
Yeah, and so like for Dizzy, I wanted that, like you nailed it, like that Aeon Flux, that heavy metal, like these like magical worlds that were like high, like technology, but they're like in the past and they're advanced, but they're still riding ships and they're wearing cloaks. And then for Shaky Spears, oh my gosh, that was the hardest character for me, because I knew I wanted, based on her storyline, she comes in when it gets to her book 5, there's a lot of Greek and mythological references, like actually even in book there, and there's a hint to this in Carrie's book. Towards the end, Shaky Spears is staring at a picture of the tragedy and comedy masks, which will play a part later. That directly ties into a story, her own personal story in book 5. And so I went down a rabbit hole with her, and because there was she's a dryad, so I was trying really hard to create my own dryad mythology within the Dlod universe, because how the dryads were originally created in Greek mythology was it was a little unclear. There's like a lot of different versions how the dryads came to be. So I came up with this concept that fairies created the dryads, and fairies were born out of stars, and fairies brought the first light into the universe, and then they were sad because they were alone, and fairies' tears would fall on the ground, and from those tears dryads would spring out of the ground. So that's where Shaky Spears comes from. And again, that's explored later. It's not really like a spoiler. It's just as you learn more about her character. And she took an oath to she was forced into taking this oath to only speak in poetic verse. So that's why it's like I feel like the characters come from more of like a genre. So Shaky Spears, Shakespearean, kind of thing. And Dana Deathly is the reason I sought out Carrie, because I was like, I have to have your artwork for this book, because Dana Deathly is very much this mix. It's exactly what Carrie does. She personifies Dana Deathly the best. It's just like this mixture of like American comics with anime and manga, and that's what she represents. And Fat Cat Rogers is like the swashbuckling era and all that stuff. So Carrie got, I was like, you nailed Dana Deathly. That's like all you need to do. And then she just like kept nailing like all the other characters, and it's amazing.
It's funny how the art style does influence that, because when I read that first one, I'm like, this should be a card game. This all feels like Magic the Gathering cards. This like, right, like it's like, yo, this is, you could just, that guy, that's a 1/1 red creature that like did some fireball something. That's a blue creature in the background. And with your work, Carrie, it's like, oh, I want a fighting game. I want a 32-bit fighting game. I want all of these characters in Skullgirls. I want to like do quarter circle forward punch and see what happens.
Here, I gotta hold that picture up really quick again.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm gonna show you something.
Oh.
So
do it again. Michael, it blacked out.
Yep. Let's see. Hold on. Decline. Oh my gosh. All right. I'm gonna come back to it. Let's get back.
Okay. All right. We'll circle back.
Yeah.
But no, I love that explanation, because like I can feel a lot of these vibes from other things, but it doesn't feel like it's any one thing. And that's what I thought was so cool about it.
I also feel like you nailed the genre of video game tutorials. There's all these movies that are trying to do video games, but something is getting lost in that experience. But in the text version of it, especially when you're like, keep going, you'll get an achievement and stuff like that, that all feels very much within that genre. And these text boxes popping up and the dialogue coming, and we're panning in that way. Did a really great job of incorporating that in there. And I feel like that doesn't necessarily translate to other mediums, but you were able to channel that voice in this one really well. I like so much, your character select screens and stuff like that. It is a little bit of all of these different things that are influencing them. And I'm glad that you're able to bring in this wonderful array of talent to interpret these things, because every interpretation gives sort of a different vibe or flavor to it.
That's awesome. Thank you, dude.
Carrie, what are not your influences, but what are things that you like to draw? What are the things that you find yourself constantly doodling in corners and on receipts and on the list of things to get from the grocery store?
I'd say it's kind of interesting because it's either like fully one direction or the other. I like drawing really kind of high energy, bombastic fight scenes and bright colors. But then I also like drawing really toned down moments. So like I'll have this picture of, I don't know, two people fighting in a battle and kind of drawing out the motion of that whole battle. But then I'll also draw somebody like, oh, I'm going to the store to get milk, and then like a nice serene background or them kind of just chilling. So it's either one way or the other. There's really no in the middle.
That's the most anime answer I've ever heard. I either want to see Goku punching someone in the face, or he's on the farm like eating a carrot. Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so you watch a lot of My Hero Academia?
Oh yeah, for sure. Love it.
When you think of action, then when you see those things in your head, do you feel is it the image, or is it the thought? Do you think about the conclusion of it and then like pulling it back, or where does that image spark from?
So everything I draw is kind of a movie in my head, and it's my duty to get that motion on paper. So nothing should seem stiff. It should always keep going and moving the whole time. So like I want impacts. I think impacts are really important. You want to be able to feel like the density of something happening in a fight scene. And then like I'd mentioned before with drawing really toned back scenes, there's something like special about somebody having a Coca-Cola on the side of a beach, and there's density in that too. So to capture it in both ways is really important.
Well, and the second of those two ways that you just said is the most difficult. I feel like they talk about with cooking shows all the time. It's like, oh, this is the best grilled cheese I've ever had. There's nothing, all the ingredients. It's just the best fucking grilled cheese because there's nothing to hide behind. I feel like those drawings and stuff like that, it's like you either convey that image or you don't. You know what I mean? It either resonates with you or it doesn't. And as I was flicking through your Instagram before you popped on, I was like, wow, so many of these images resonate with me. There's something about that action.
Oh, awesome.
It's like having those moments to breathe, I think, are very important too. Which Michael and I, we were talking about this yesterday. We kind of talked about this before the show, but I had convinced Michael to finally sit down and watch the Batman vs Superman Ultimate Edition, the longer cut.
Didn't want to watch it. Was not excited to do so. Had gross taste in my mouth from the other version of it that I had seen.
Right. And so at the end of the movie, when Superman dies, one of the biggest changes that they made for the director's cut was the breathing moment, where they had like 4 minutes of just like solemn music and just showed the streets empty, showed everything empty. And like those breathing moments allow you to internalize like the holy shit moment of what just happened, or oh my God, something bad's going to happen. Yeah. And those moments are significantly important and very hard to pull off, which is pretty cool when you actually are able to nail it.
Yeah. I think those are the most important things people look for. Like when you watch anime and somebody says, this is a good anime, and the plot could be very whatever. But if you have an animator and a director who knows their timing really well and knows their color theory well, it's just a like candy to look at and experience.
everything that you just said, the Demon Slayer just hits all of those boxes.
I was just thinking about that. Yes.
The colors, the action, the movement. It's just like you just take handfuls of it at a time, and it's never enough. It always, at the end of every episode, you're like, what do you mean it's over? I thought there was going to be. Yeah, but just those gobbling up of those things. Yeah.
I was gonna say too, on that note of letting things breathe. There's a really cool scene that like I think might be one of my favorite scenes from any Dlod thing so far in book 3 is where there's a there's a character there's a scene where the heroes have to hurt everyone else's ears. They have to like play a guitar really loud to hurt everyone else's ears. And so I kept going back and forth on like how to communicate what was going on. And Carrie and I came up with this concept of like, basically what's going to happen is when that guitar is struck, it's going to be only artwork.
No, you're breaking up again. No, I'm gonna stop you because you're making a real punk rock image, but you've completely frozen on us, and I want to know the answers. I want to know.
Maybe it's considered a spoiler.
Yeah, maybe that's what
like
it is.
An auto.
The universe doesn't want us to know.
Yeah, these are the answers we do want to have. No, we're waiting. We're waiting.
He's just going like
he's
it's
just
killing
trying
me.
to get back.
I want to know now.
Yeah, listen. This is
and take this one. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no. We got none of your answer. But just so you know, it's not like you have to re-explain bits of it. You have to re-explain all of it.
How much? Am I back?
You're back now.
As of now, yes.
You and Carrie were able to show music attacking people's ears. What was the spark that not the spark? Explain that thing again. How did you convey that? What was that process like?
When the guitar is hit, the energy from the guitar goes into the enemy's eardrums, basically. And the characters, the heroes, are wearing earmuffs, so they're not affected by the loudness of the guitar. And I wanted to figure out like how we could portray that where it feels loud, like in a movie like Hurt Locker or something like that, when like a grenade goes off and there's just like a beep for like a couple minutes. We decided to go to only artwork, no text, so it's just quiet, like you're not reading anything, so it's just quiet. And it's just Carrie's artwork for, I think, like it goes on for a minute, right? Like 6 pages. I think it's 6 pages of only artwork, no speaking. And then we're going to have like a beep at the bottom of the page that just is like following all these different pages. And then Carrie puts only like 1 or 2 colors on the first scene that goes into that. Then she adds a color and she keeps adding a color until it slowly rolls back into the story, and the characters can start are alive again, and they're speaking again. So I think, and how that came out, because I've put it on my computer and I've like looked at with the text, and like how it came out, it's so cool. It's like, I think one of the coolest parts.
It looks really awesome. Yeah. It was a good move.
Well, you're playing with the full form of this visual medium now, and to give so much and to allow your artists to help convey these ideas, and to also, have to break down the problem of like, how do we show silence in a way but still convey action? Because right, there is a and it's why when I'm reading these things, it leads to all of these images in my mind. You really do paste these things in a way, and then when you have these full page art like you did at the end of volume 2, which also, you feel this buildup, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, now we're in it. Like now we're just gonna like do this thing. We're gonna have this whole thing.
Well, you could talk about it, because we said so what part specifically are you?
Okay. So at this point, we're talking about what these wonderful Jedi, these last two Jedi that are left in this universe, and we don't really know what they can do. We have an idea of their powers, but haven't really seen it. He chomps down that pineapple, and he turns into a Megazord, where you're expanding upon not only what this individual is, because now there's not just like an organicness to it. It's like oh, there is something else in this DNA, like a transformer or a GoBot. There's other things here. So when you see the scale of that and your text goes away and you just feel the weight of this Pacific Rim battle as we see our monkey Barbatos, because that third monkey head is coming around just like we were talking about. And you see like, oh, the weight and which that these conflicts are going to happen. They can not only happen in action sequences of running away and stuff like that, and I'm sure we'll have intimate fights, but to then blow it up and be like, no, what we're talking about, the scale of these things happening is at a Pacific Rim level. Like, and eventually this conflict is going to go, but like, oh, I could destroy your planet, pineapple bite, to have that flip, because beforehand, everyone is reading these. There's some people that are reading them like this. I read them on a computer. So as I would read and do this dialogue, I would then look at the picture and then go back and kind of synthesize both. So when you go and move into a full art, which I'm super excited that happens in volume 3, you just go into the world even further and you're like, oh boy, here it comes. Like, right, this is just us in this thing discovering these things. And that balance is a great tightrope. Do other characters then also go Super Saiyan 4 immediately when they battle? Are we going to see, does everybody else have sort of these abilities, or are their powers going to manifest in different ways?
Remember how I said at the beginning of this that there needs to be 4 of the heroes?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Great.
But they don't really know that yet. But yes.
4.
Yeah. So, okay. So you know the Shokunin symbol in book 1.
And your symbols are really really great. When I saw that, yeah, I instantly got I just read the Dark Tower trilogy, the little Ka-Tet sign. I don't know if you've ever read that. Oh, yeah. There's a symbol in there, and I was like, oh, here we go again. Here's something that's going to be blown out to everything.
So on the left, the top left of that symbol is strength. On the top right is knowledge. On the bottom is love. And in the middle is the energy that holds all of those 3 things together. And that's the way of the Shokunin. So like Dana Deathly is a very strong character. Shaky Spears is a very knowledgeable character. Cat Rogers is a very, like, his whole thing is love, and like he learns how to do that. He stops himself from doing that, and once he lets that go. And Dizzy Doom is the positive force that's holding all 3 of those characters together, and that is going to play a huge role in how all this turns out. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Is there a negative force where if we take that symbol and flip it this way, well, now it's the sun that is setting, and then it's I'm sorry.
Are you hacking my computer?
Okay, great. I apologize. Okay. Well, your imagery is so great, and you're playing with all of these things, and even the way that you are presenting this idea of yours, it's coming in multimedia forms. There's music to it. It's coming in all these different ways. So why would I also not assume that the things on the paper are not being looked at in a 3-dimensional way as well?
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we let Michael grab any more spoilers and pull more info out of you,
I didn't mean to. I was just thinking where these things go, and there's so much to build off of. Okay.
One last thing that I wanted to bring up, which kind of took the Snyder Cut community by storm, was the announcement that Ray Porter is writing the introduction to this book. Yes. I'm not going to read any of it because I loved it and I want people to experience it when they read it for the first time. you said at the beginning before we started the show that when you talked to Ray, when you got all that stuff in there, he understood the assignment and he delivered gold. And
yes.
Tell me a little bit about it. Like, don't say what it is. Let's not go into that because people are expecting like Ray to be like narrating it or something. But no, he wrote something, and that is the big thing. Is he wrote something fantastic.
Yeah, he also just a hero of mine. I mean, all the stuff he's done, Sons of Anarchy, all the voice work. It was really funny. I read the I read the 4-Hour Work Week like a couple of years ago, which he narrates. So that was just kind of a cool little tie in there. So I've been familiar with this stuff for a long time. And then when I found out he was Darkseid, I was like, oh man, this is so cool. But yeah, he's such a gentleman. He's such a kind man. Like he made me feel like I was doing something incredible. Like I was doing something worth reading, worth people's time. And I mean, of course I feel that way or else I wouldn't be doing it. But, I think it's a story that needs to be told, but at the same time, like, you don't know, I'm still a creative at the end of the day. And you have, 10 people telling you suck, and that's all you really hear. And for him to like take the time and meet with me, and he actually read, so don't get jealous, but he actually read books 1 through 3. So he got to read all 3 books. And it was only in manuscript form. And then I sent him a ton of the artwork, like whatever I had, I just like dumped it in a file for him. So, cause I wanted him to see, I wanted him to talk about Carrie too. Like I wanted him to like see Carrie's artwork. So like I sent him the manuscript and I said, hey, look, like I know it's not put together, but, and I numbered all the pages for him. I was like, if you want to like, I know it's a lot of extra work, but if you want to see what's happening in the scene, this is what it looks like. So I sent him everything I had from Carrie at that point. And it was just awesome. He was like, I feel like I can say this because it wasn't like, we had a very open conversation, but we talked about a lot of things. But he was basically like, I'll be honest with you. I was looking for a nice way to tell Hussein, who did the introduction for me. I was looking for a nice way to tell Hussein like, nah, this isn't really for me. And then he was like, and because he didn't read it yet. And he was like, I was looking at it and I was like, yeah, I don't know, and then so he's like, let me just give it a shot. And then he read it and he was like, so I could smell the caves and I could like hear the characters walking. I could hear their footsteps. I could see the stars. I could see the ships moving. And he was like, I was totally just there for the ride. And I was like trying to not cry during the meeting because I'm like, what just happened? And I hope he watches this. I hope he watches this episode. He's a very busy man, so I don't know if he will or not. But yeah, I just eternally grateful. So if you're watching this, dude, thank you so much. I've already said thank you, but just that just meant the world to me. Like it made me feel like I could do anything. If I was like, dude, this guy who's been a hero of mine for a very long time, who was getting ready to be like, yeah, not going to do it, but I'm going to give it the time of day because Hussein's a friend and I'm going to send it, I'm going to read it. And then he was like, holy shit. I mean, he kind of says that in the introduction too, a little bit. But he was like, this is a ride. Like it's going to take you for a ride. Like Dlod's pretty wild. So, but yeah, that guy's a legend. Such a gentleman.
Well, after reading it, after you sent it to me, you were so excited. You sent this to me like a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
Like, I need to send this to you. I need you to read this. And I read it and I was just like, oh my God, he did it. Like it wasn't like he just took the job and penned, like found something in. No, I could tell from the way he wrote it, he loved what he read. And you can see that in the text. And it was so cool. And And I really hope when fans open up this book and see that page and get to read it, they just see how much Ray loved it, because it was honestly, I was like, holy crap, this is so cool. And I love the analogies and I love what he's saying. And I want him to narrate my life. Like, like it's so good. It's so good. So, well,
there may, him and I talked about doing something in the future too, Dlod related. So there may be, he may come back at some capacity.
So. I hope so. I mean, every time I read these first two volumes that you gave me, I want to see more. I want to see it all. I want to see it in comic form. I want to see it in animated form. I want to see it on like my TV in all its weirdness. I want to see video games. I want to see I want to play it as a game. Like I want all of that. And I absolutely love that. It's like you've captured lightning in a bottle here. And this, wow. Like, I don't think people have quite realized what you've got. And I think maybe later on the line, it's going to explode, and it's going to, I'm all for it. It's so good.
Thank you, man. Thank you guys so much.
I enjoy the line of many of the things that resonate for me with my childhood were things that were for me, but were written for a higher intelligence. And I feel that many of those, I feel like that also shines its head here as well. These things are happening on multiple different levels. And if you're not reading it, connect with it, find another way to connect with it, because there's a lot going on these pages and in these texts.
That's wow. Thank you guys.
Well, thank you guys for both joining us. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Gabe, for taking an hour and some change with us and talking about book 3.
More than an hour at this point. Yeah. They've been here a lot longer than you guys think they've been here. They've been very wonderful with their time.
No, we started this. I think we were shooting the shit for like 45 minutes before we actually started recording, and we're like, why aren't we recording? This is wonderful.
Well, that was a problem. But that's fine. Yeah. We weren't recording then. We said we weren't recording. We meant it. Nothing got recorded. We're fine.
Yeah, we're fine. It would have been fun though. I have a 2-hour-long show of us just talking about One Piece and Gundam for a bit. Like that'd have been great. But thank you again. Volume 3, Dana Deathly, is now launched on Kickstarter. We are we're throwing it up here. If you guys have if you guys want to scan it, QR code in the top corner, just scan that thing. Go right to the page and back the project. I mean, get on the ground floor. It's going to release a lot quicker than y'all think, and it's going to be in your hands, and we're going to just get along for this ride. Thank you guys again. You guys, anything else you want to say before we head out?
Space mermaids, dryads, lizard wizards, zombie ninjas, cyborg cat pirates, and pineapple demons.
Pineapples, I was going to say.
It has it all.
You sold me at Space Mermaid, so I'm ready for the whole thing. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us on another episode of the Culture Nerd Podcast. If you want to support us and our channel, go ahead and hit us up on Patreon, patreon.com/theculturednerd. I am your host, Taylor Murphy, my co-host, Michael Santel. Our 2 Patreon supporters, Wesley H. and Oscar B. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on. And thank you for joining us today. You can scan the QR code there, hit us up on any social media platform, or you can just tune along next week when we drop another new show. Thank you all again.
Okay, bye.